the Everything But Politics podcast.
And then, but you know what was so cool and like it's a forever a moment in time is the Bob Saget cameo. I mean, getting him in there, that's gonna live like literally forever. Well, how did you
Oh,
and
yeah.
Bob become friendly?
So I was an uncredited writer for the show Entourage for like the first two seasons, and Doug Allen, the creator, is a good friend of mine still. And so Doug created the show, gave me an office. I was in a deal at ABC for like another sitcom situation, so I wasn't legally allowed to have a different job. But Doug wanted like my writing and like my comedy, like my vibe, whatever. And so they gave me an office at Entourage. And so I basically was like kind of like punching up jokes and being in the writer's room and just vibing out there for two seasons. And so one of the guys, one of the writers there was already friends with Bob. And so, I'd been on the road with Joe Rogan. I'd been on the road with Diaz and Ari. And, I've been on the road for years. And so one of the guys was like, yo, you got to meet Bob Saget. They're like, you got to meet Bob. And so ironically, I was playing the Tempe Improv. Bob was coming in like the next week, or no, that same week. We crossed travel. And so I came to the Tempe Improv just to go introduce myself to him. He was so cool. And it was just like basically as simple as Bob going, you know what, you'll open for me one time and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Cut to 12 years later, bro, I was Bob's opener.
that's great.
Yeah,
And
that's
he's so
special.
funny. Let me ask you this: Is in real life is Bob Saget more similar to Full House Bob Saget or Entourage Bob Saget?
In real life, he was a perfect combination, man. He was dirty and witty as shit and funny and edgy and real. Bob was a gangster, bro.
He's a
Bob
legend.
was Bob Saget was like he had both sides of the brain working perfectly. He was as real as it gets and as silly as it gets. So he had probably the value system of Full House in terms of like loving his family and just hugging you out and always saying I love you. And then he was dirty as shit because that's just where his brain went.
I know 12 years is a lot to be on the road with someone. Do you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
favorite memory?
Oh man, people have asked me this, but I had freaking 500 memories with
Yeah,
Bob,
I'm sure.
and so many of them. We've been through everything. You know what I mean? Like I had a blood clot in my leg from 8 hours on an airplane, and it almost went to my lung. I got off stage and I had like this pain in my back, and Bob thought he could save my life because he thought it was just a back cramp. So he had me on the ground and he like put his knuckle into my back and the clot started shooting higher up into my lung.
Uh,
So basically he almost killed me one night in Miami. But luckily I got to the hospital and I was fine. But I mean, we've had drivers that got lost and like Bob took over and drove. You know what I mean? Like he's like, get out of the car, I'm driving. Like Bob would take over for a driver. Uh, you know, one of the drivers we came to picked us up at an airport and like they were already getting their car towed, and Bob, I'd never seen Bob run in my life. He started running after the tow truck and like knocked on the door like while the guy was driving. He's like, I'm Bob Saget, please stop. And like got the car back. Like you never get a car off a tow.
Never. That's legendary.
that is
He
legendary.
pulled that shit, and like I think a sheriff was there. Yeah, Bob got it. I mean, we had so many good times, man. So many good times, like beyond. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's
I could get
amazing.
crazy, but I can't get too crazy. I can't. I can't. I've had all the best times because Bob was always married. You know what I mean? Like there was like a little short window of Bob being single. There was a little single Bob before he met his wife, and we just had a blast. Trips
That's
to
awesome.
Bob would do. We did a trip to Vegas like on a whim. Like we're just like at one time we were just like sitting in a restaurant with these two fine girls, and Bob was like, "You want to go to Vegas?" And next thing you know, Bob was like a tech wizard on his phone, and he just gets on his phone. He's like, "Doot, doot, 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 doot." Next thing you know, we all got first class tickets to Vegas, and we went 3 days for like the most fun Vegas trip ever.
The Everything But Politics podcast.